And what's up, everybody? It's Jason Zombie Collector doing the last video of the evening. Same still hairstyle. This is the I wore a hat all day look. So if you all remember my live stream talking about how people just like completely like don't know how to ship stuff and completely botched it with the whole burning the envelope along with the cards inside the envelope, and how the guy didn't want to take any ownership of it. It took me like 3 days before he even acknowledged that the cards were on fire, and he sent them in a terrible, did not package them in the correct way. And I had a fight with him, and then eBay and all that. So you all know the story. You can go back and revisit that video. I think it's a keeper. Well, like about 4 days after that, so that's going on a week and a half ago, he sent me a follow-up email and was like, "Oh yeah, man. Yeah, those cards are burned up. They were on fire, so that's weird." And I'm like, "Yeah, I told you that a week ago. What's this conversation about?" And he was like, "Oh man, I'm so sorry." And I'm like, it's like this conversation I had been having with him never happened prior, and this was all like newfound information that he just came across recently. And I'm like, "What in the heck is happening?" And he was like, let me try to see if I can make it right. And I'd already got my money back from eBay, so like $3.42. So I was like, "Yeah, okay." And so he took a picture of like 5 or 6 cards and said, "Can I send these in this call and even?" And I'm like, "Sure, man, whatever." Of the wrestling cards. Well, he sent me a stack of cards, which was way more than what I said. That's fine, because at that point I would get my money back. It was a hassle. But it just, whatever. But when he said he was going to send me back, I'm like, "Sure, you can send me some cards back to make it right." Since the other ones I had to toss in the garbage because holes were burned in them. So guess how he sends them? I am not even kidding you. He sent them again in a PWE with a piece of paper wrapped around them and just a couple of stamps. Not non-machinable on the envelope. The envelope is like sticking up like, 2.5, 3 inches high. So it's not nice and flat. It's like, has a huge bump in it. And it's like, somehow it got to my house unscathed. And here we are. So I'm going to show you the cards he sent me. They actually were surprisingly really cool cards. I did not expect the card he sent me. I was expecting to kind of just like, shut up cards or don't leave me bad feedback cards. So this was a lot better than I thought. So the first up is a big boss man of Cobb County, Georgia. One of their like insert cards or whatever you want to kind of say. So you have that. I have, Smash from Demolition. Right there. Next up is, if I can get it, that'd be great. Tito Santana. Right there. And he's with the Masked Executioner. This is in WrestleMania, the first one. I honestly do not remember the Masked Executioner, but there he is. Next up is everybody's favorite chemically imbalanced wrestler, Haku. The Haku stories are legendary. Like he literally tried to kill a bunch of YouTubers one time, and like, I guess they were in America. They were like, thought they were doing some kind of like angle or whatnot. Haku wasn't in on the joke. He thought they were like literally making fun of him and his like family, or giving his son a hard way to go. His son, who was also a wrestler, and he tried to punch him out. So he's like chasing them around, like literally chasing them around, trying to knock him out, because somebody didn't tell Haku that this was supposed to be like a joke or an angle, or they're trying to just like get a rise out of the crowd. And so these the guys from like England or Scotland that do a podcast / YouTube channel was in on the joke with parts of Haku's family or whatever, and they didn't tell Haku, and so Haku thought they were just like being disrespectful and mean. So he was like, they show him filming them, chasing them around, trying to punch them in the face. This is not to include the times where people have said that even Andre the Giant was a little bit scared of Haku because he was just as crazy as apparently Giant was. Next up is Virgil. We all know, a lot of us know the story of Virgil. It's kind of a sad story. Obviously he kind of played like the, butler or chauffeur of the $1 Million Man. But like he's always trying to like, you know, he do these like autograph shows, or sometimes I've heard he'll just walk up to people like in a parking lot and try to be like, hey, I'm Virgil. I'll sign anything you want for $20. So that's an unfortunate situation. Then we got Hercules right here. I remember he came out to the ring with like a big, huge like chain, I believe. Kind of like what not Snoop Dogg, Junkyard Dog. He had the collar and the like the big chain like leash thing, but this was like more like a huge giant just like metal chain that he would wrap around his neck or down his shoulders. And I remember him doing that. So that's Hercules. Then I don't really remember this guy too much. I kind of remember the name Rugged. Was it Ronnie Garvin? Yes. So I don't really remember this guy too much, to be honest. The name sounds familiar, so I'm sure I heard it somewhere. But there's a Rugged Ronnie Gardner or Garvin. Sorry. Then we have Greg the Hammer Valentine. Now I do know this. Him right here for sure. I'm not for sure who he has in that that hold. Is that I can't remember what that hold's called. Is that just like a reverse chin lock, like some kind of like, you know? So there you have that. I'm a huge fan of Greg the Hammer Valentine. Liked him a whole lot. Okay. Next up we got a Hulk Rules, like insert. I don't even want to call it an insert, but like a non-pictured card. So Hulk Rules. That's the second one I received. Then we got Miss Elizabeth. Everybody knows Miss Elizabeth. She's actually from Kentucky. And this right here, she was apparently manager to Hulk Hogan. So this must have been the whole, you know, Hogan when he went to like protect her or help her. And Randy Macho Man Savage lost his mind thinking there was something going on. So she must have been his manager at the time. So Miss Elizabeth. I just got to watch and I picked up in that box set a bunch of Randy Macho Man Savage matches from like 1982 until like 2003 or whatever it was. And it was amazing. I'm going to have to do a video about that. It is amazing how he treated her like dog crap the entire time. Like, it is, I mean, I guess when you're a kid, you just don't pick up on all that, which is fine, which is good. I never remember how terrible he treated Miss Elizabeth. But he treated her like garbage. It was shocking. Like, I was just like, wow. I mean, it's stuff that you would never get away with nowadays, talking to anybody like that. Especially, you know, if you're a man, talking to a woman like that in an aggressive manner. But it is very surprising. I know he's playing a character, kind of. But if you know anything about the Savage and Elizabeth story, let's say reality and fantasy weren't too far apart. Talk about Randy Macho Man. We got Macho Madness right here. Randy Macho Man Savage. Or he's a Macho King at this point. So there you go. Randy Macho Man Savage. And then you can see the sensational Sherry in the background, who became his manager after the Miss Elizabeth and him had a falling out. So there you go. Macho Madness. Then we got Classy Freddie Blassie. So everybody remembers Freddie Blassie. He was like a heel manager. I don't remember him ever being a good guy in any capacity. First he was Iron Sheik's manager. Then he was like Ivan Volkov's manager. Then I think he was manager for both of them. And I think he managed a bunch of other people during like the 80s when I was growing up watching. But I always remember him coming out with, I believe he had like a cane or something. And he would call people pencil neck geeks. He's like, you ain't nothing but a pencil neck geek. Which, again, nowadays, that's like something that Joe Biden would say. Come on, man. All right, next up we have WrestleMania 4 with the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, with Andre the Giant and Virgil. I'm going to go actually meet the $1 Million Man this weekend in Fort Wayne. He's going to be there with IRS, Erwin R. Shyster. Carlito's going to be there. Chris Masters will be there. I'm trying to think of who else. There's some other like old-timey names. There's a bunch of newer people there. Hornswoggle will be there. There's a handful of guys, but I'm really going to see Ted DiBiase and get his autograph. I met him years ago when I was in college. At the time, I wasn't an autograph guy, so I didn't really think about that, but now I'm going to rectify that. Next up, we have the Widowmaker, Barry Windham. So there you have Barry Windham, the Widowmaker, and again, he's one of those guys I don't really remember a lot. The name sounds familiar. That might be Dusty Rhodes he has there on the ground. I can't tell if that's Dusty Rhodes or not. But there you go. He's from Sweetwater, Texas. And then who do we have here? We have Tito Santana and a Junkyard Dog taking on the Funk Brothers, Terry and Haas, managed by Jimmy Mouth of the South Heart. So I don't really see, I don't see Junkyard in this one, but there you got Tito Santana, which again, he was one of my favorite wrestlers when I was a kid growing up. He came out like sometimes, I believe, in a Matador outfit somewhere in like the late 80s or the early 90s. But I just remember him being a great wrestler mid 80s, but before he had kind of like the Matador look. Let's see. Now we're down to the last couple of really heavy hitters. Then we got Big Boss Man right here. He started out with I think he actually really was a prison guard or something. I know that was like his gimmick. But I really do believe he was like part of the Department of Corrections or something. That was like what he really did in real life before he became a wrestler. I always thought he was a heel, but then I think he turned good, and then he went back to being a heel. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he ended up having an angle where he ended up like using a SWAT team outfit. So he kind of changed the good old boy Southern Georgia, yo, come on back now, you hear? To more of a, SWAT team member. But then I think, if I'm not mistaken, this was like during the Attitude Era, which I was not watching, that they ended up crucifying him on national TV, like legitly hanging him up, maybe not crucifying him, but hanging him up by the neck in a live show. Stuff that you would never see nowadays. Never. Next up, Bret the Hitman Hart, right there, from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. The excellence of execution. I'm a big Bret the Hitman Hart fan. I think he's one of the best technical wrestlers ever to lace up the boots. I would love to meet him in real life. He was a guy I used to watch a lot when I was a kid. Because he wasn't one of the big guys. He was a smaller guy. He wasn't like, it had this incredible muscular physique. He had like a healthy athletic build. But he didn't have muscles on top of muscles on top of muscles. And I just liked his look. He always came across as like, I think he turned heel towards the end of like WCW or something. But he's always a baby face. I always liked him a lot. Quite a bit. Next up, second to last, is Hillbilly Jim. The big old horseshoe right there. Also from Kentucky. He's from Mud Lick, Kentucky. It says, his unusual characteristics, a good old country boy. Jim wrestles in his overalls and carries his lucky gold horseshoe. So there you go. He doesn't even have a finishing move or a move that he's even aware of. He is 6'7", so... Because I remember thinking he was really big because I saw him sitting next to Andre the Giant before and Hogan, who Hogan's also 6'7". And I remember thinking, wow, like he's a pretty big guy because, Giant's 7'4", I believe. That's what he was billed as. So there you go. You got Hillbilly Jim. I always liked Hillbilly Jim. He had like Uncle Elmer and cousin, I can't remember, cousins. It's not cousin Vinny. It's not my cousin Vinny. I can't remember cousin something. I always liked Hillbilly Jim. And then all of a sudden I felt like the whole like good old boy hillbilly stuff just disappeared off the network or off of WWF back then. I don't really know what happened. But I think he's still kicking down in Kentucky somewhere. I saw a recent video of him or something. He looked like he's in pretty good shape still and 70 years old or late 60s, so good for him. And then lastly, Jake the Snake Roberts, who is 6'5", which is hilarious. When I stood next to him and I got to meet him a couple years ago, I looked like Peter Griffin. Which is unfortunate because I had like my hair cut real shorter than this, and I'm like this. Because I'm like, it was like a mix of euphoria and fear. Like I was so excited to meet him, so I'm like, and I was like, that's like an embarrassing picture. It's not one of my finer moments. I wasn't smiling. I was like scared to smile. I didn't know if I should be scared. I was just like, I was meeting, Jake the Snake Roberts, who, as anyone who knows, Jake the Snake Roberts is a very intimidating cat. And even then, he was, as like a 65-year-old man or whatever, I was just like, man, this guy would destroy me in real life. He would just like rip me apart. And I mean, I've shared the story before. I might have to share the story with him again. That when I met him a couple years ago, he did his comedy skit. It was really surprising, but I'll never forget when I will go back and look at the picture. I'm with a friend of mine. We went to go see him at this comedy club or this bar, and I'm like this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, can I just smile naturally? Or I just stand there like this? Why do I gotta be like this? Thanks for watching.